The Dracons, one of the first Protector races. They are humanoids that both emerged and continue to reside in some of the harshest parts of Destiny. Their scale-like skin, general fortitude, and natural affinity for the magics of Aphalas, allowing them to thrive where most would waver. Hello all, and welcome to the Kingdom of Aphalas channel and the Worlds of Fellowmind books. Today we will be taking a deeper dive into each of the Protector Races of Aphalas, beginning with this video which will focus upon the Dracons. The Dracons first emerged in three distinct groups, who at first would only be distinguished by the natural coloration of their scales, but eventually would adopt new traits and skills that would distinguish them further. The first of these groups we will look at are the Tharith. The Tharith Dracons emerged on the loosely linked land of Rolathine, and from the image in front of you, this is the land that eventually Tonreef overruns and establishes his fire pits upon to conduct his conflicts towards the rest of Destiny. The Tharith developed into some of the most physically imposing of all Dracons, and would go on to become the Dracons renowned for their great cities, remaining the closest of the three to the land that they lived upon. The Tharith would also be the last of the Dracon peoples to truly unite under the Kingdom of Darenthal, as their own Kingdom of Rolathine stood for many years, and even after its fall, many decided to travel across Aphalas to aid other peoples such as the Trolls and the Dwarves in their own architecture, then join with the kingdom. Furthermore, soon after that, many Dracons of the Tharith would also go on to form the First Blessed Voyage alongside some Kirindrek, and travel over to the Arak Nilith archipelago that existed to the northwest of Destinal. Their two Tharith sisters would go on to form the Sister Realm Isles on an island each. Eventually, several of these folk that followed the sisters, alongside several of the Kirindrek who had also settled an isle of their own, would form the Amethyst Protectors on the Central Isle to aid Natag in his protection of what was kept secret on that land. And they would together fight against any that dared enter or threaten that land. The second of these groups were those who, above all other Dracons, had a greater control and affinity for the magics of the world. The Darin were those born upon the crashes and downpours of the Storm Peak, a place that would eventually also fall to Tonreef. They saw their birth upon this land as the world of Aphalas blessing them with the ability to wield one of the several orders of magic. From that day on, the Storm Peak became a significant place not only for the Darin but also for Dracons as a whole. The Darin would go on to construct a great bastion on the Storm Peak where every enchanter from then on would spend a period of time training. Unfortunately, the Storm Peak would eventually be overrun and converted into the Shadow Hill Fortress, where Tonreef would move his command to. However, after constructing the Great Bastion, many Darin would also venture south, finding a stretch of land with the support of the Tavar Dracons who laid to the west of this land, where together they would found the 5 Towers of Enchanting, the Narrocorn Enhir, and the founding of the Narrocorn Order, a place where Darin Dracons would train in one of the 5 orders of magic open to them: Feldspar, Obsidian, Ruby, Emerald, or Sapphire. Several would become scholars through their training, though some of these scholars would eventually go on to open the right to train with magic to those Dracons not of Darin blood, and eventually some of those would even go on to open this to all peoples of Aphalas, providing that they did serve Aphalas. The last of the three were the Tavar, Dracons who emerged in the coastal areas of the region that would later become known as Toranai. Whilst the Tharith grew to fall in love with the land around them, the Tavar fell in love with the sea. It is part of the reason why the Dracons of Rolothine took so long to meet with those who would forge the kingdom of Darenthal, as few of the Tavar ever ventured far inland. Though despite this, they did go on to create the kingdom of Darenthal, whilst some of their number remained independent around southern Rollock. Whilst the Dracon's seafaring capabilities never rose to the same capabilities of that of the ogres or that of the sea elves, many being on par with the other elven peoples or even some humans, they still went to the sea fearlessly. This lack of fear for the ocean and all the threats that it may hide allowed many Dracons to travel out and make contacts with the rest of the Protector races and other peoples throughout Aphalas. Many Tavar would take to the seas and venture around Aphalas, some to trade, some to negotiate, others simply for the adventure. Eventually, though, after learning of the presence of the Tharith on the archipelago, many Tavar Dracons would also take their ships and go to aid against primarily pirate incursions onto the network of islands. They would also be present, serving as both transportation and support for the Dracons and allies in the wars against Sinepia, Nagrasak, or any other threat, many of their ships and sailors often coming to blows with the likes of the Dark Elves. And some, unfortunately, also the Ogres. Eventually, the Dracons of Destinal would come to unite under the banner of Darenthal. Whilst the kingdom of Rolothine would eventually fall, the Storm Peak would continue to be stalwartly held, though its distance from the actual kingdom borders would now be great. However, eventually it would also fall. The northern border of Darenthal would eventually be marked by a new dividing of the lands of Rollock and the construction of the Tavercorn, a magically imbued wall that would stretch from the coastal point to the hills of Dothalon. This marks the northeast and northwestern ends of the Darenthal territory. The Tavercorn would slowly be eroded by constant assaults from Tonreef and other foes throughout time, but Darenthal itself would not fall until the waning years of the Houses of Humans. Throughout Aphalas, the Dracons as a whole were noted for various endeavours, being a significant part of the Amethyst Protectors, working alongside both Galeria herself and their allies and friends among the dwarfs to forge the only weapons that could be used to fell the creators, weapons such as the bow of Calastenir, the spear of Arakan, even the staff of Shah, which they themselves would be entrusted to wield. The Dracons stood only alongside the Ajati as the two peoples upon all of Aphalas who could never truly be corrupted, not even by Sinepia herself. This immunity to corruption is what caused both Sinepia and Nagrasak to view the Dracons as one of their greatest threats and fiercest opponents within the Protector races. They both viewed them as Galeria's favourite creation among the original peoples to emerge, and they would go on to also be a great ally and friend to the humans who would emerge in the east of Destinal. And they would also welcome the Wood Elves when they were granted a home upon Destinal aiding them in many ventures and supporting their construction of new homelands. The Dracons are an interesting story. They are one that have, whilst their reach has been felt upon all of Aphalas, their actual land has never been truly massive, largely keeping and being happy with their small holdings in comparison to some of the other realms upon the world. Unfortunately, upon Nagrisak's corruption and indoctrination of Tonrith, the Dracons in that would find a new opponent that would keep their kingdoms occupied until eventually they would be driven off of Destinal by an overwhelming tide of Tonrith's forces, as well as internal division that created the only known Dracon civil war. There are many heroes upon the Dracons that all of Aphalas are renowned for, people such as Trelvin, but the Dracons themselves would never be able to truly fend off a great host, even with their affinity of magic being among some of the greatest of all of Aphalas. The next video in this series is going to be focusing on the dwarfs, and the dwarfs are a people who in many ways are almost an opposite to the Dracons in that they are a people who have had to travel and found many new homes for various reasons. I also want to just put it out there and apologize for this video taking so long, but I have been focusing on some other projects relating to the works, and then I was ill with COVID for the first time, so I didn't have a whole lot of voice to be doing this. But there is going to potentially be a post going up that is going to list the order in which these videos are going to conduct, because that is going to be the next protocol. And in the future, I have also concluded that I am probably going to be redoing these videos when there is more artwork available and when I am also a bit more familiar with editing software and things like that. But for now, that is all. If you liked the video, please do the usual like and subscribe. Please share with your friends, and also please check the channel description as there will be a link for the Code of Chivalry ebook, which is now available on Lulu. As for Defenders of Aphalas, the first book of the trilogy is going to be going up there hopefully next week, again in ebook format. Thank you, and until next time, welcome to the world of Aphalas.